You're up, my friend.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Mita, for the time. Like Scott said, I really appreciate being here. Um, so I'm bipolar too, and I spent, several decades, publicly traded companies, et cetera, hiding that. Because as you brought up, I wanted a seat at the table. I was fortunate. I had something I could hide. Whereas for, a lot of people, they don't, right? That being said, it's still a huge problem within the bipolar community. Is this, and not only in the bipolar community, but I would say neurodivergence across the board. When you can't hide it, is this fear of if you come out, you no longer have a seat at the table, even though it's technically a protected class. You run risks. And things of that nature. So it's not a topic I hear brought up very often when we talk about inclusion. And I just would love to hear your thoughts on how do we move the needle forward on individuals. I'm fortunate. I went and started my own company. I don't have to deal with that anymore. But how do we move the needle for folks to be able to start to feel comfortable to talk about those things so that then they have a relationship with their employer, where their employer can understand where their superpowers are and where maybe some of the shortcomings are as a result.
I think it becomes a tipping point. We need one or two people to feel it's not about, let me give this as an example. I had an individual who identified as neurodivergent who worked for me. And it was a big learning opportunity for me as a manager, but also for this individual to feel comfortable sharing and also not feel like that they were punished for it. Because that's the worst thing I could have done if I had that information had disclosed and all of a sudden I treated them differently. That's not what this individual was asking for. But I think that's what I would ask anyone who is listening today. If you're leading teams and you get to know your people and they're sharing things with you about their lived experience, and how they learn, how they like to lead at work, how they like to make impact. And that's a really important moment for you to show up in the way you need to. Because if you can show up and try to understand their experience and meet them where they are, it then allows for that relationship to be a role model of like how these relationships would be at work. Because I think the worst thing I've seen done is like when you disclose something and it's weaponized against you.
Yeah.
I'm sure we can all relate to that on some level. You disclose something personal, the whole like bring your whole self to work. I'm like, I don't know. I bring my best version of myself to work. I'm not sure if people are prepared for the whole self, because if I bring my whole self and I share things that are weaponized, then that breaks the psychological trust and safety. Like, why would I ever share anything again? So that would be my hope, is that people start to really understand each other's experiences and share.
Thank you.
Andrew, I'm curious. So when you said I'm bipolar too, which I understood what you meant, but for some people who may not know you as well, they may have thought you were saying that Mita's bipolar.
No, there's bipolar
what
one
is
and
what is bipolar two, just so we're all more educated.
Yeah, absolutely. So real quick, so bipolar one typically is mania. It's the mania level in bipolar one can really damage your life significantly, finances, relationships, your life, whatever. For bipolar two, it's a flip between hypomania and depression. The hypomania is not as destructive, but for instance, if you ever see me talking really fastly, if I'm like super highly elevated in energy, if I'm having a lot of different ideas at the same time, that's a hypomanic state. Depressed state, I think we kind of all know what depressed state is. And then also in bipolar 2, there's what's called a mixed state. That's the super fun one. That's where hypomania and depression lay on top of each other. It's not really fun. So yeah, there you go.
Thanks for sharing that. I appreciate it. Paul,